Welcome to Cleantech Forward, a Foresight podcast where we explore clean tech customers, capital, and Canada's path to net zero. Tune in to learn more about Canada's most exciting clean tech startups, industry success stories, investor insights, and academic initiatives as we accelerate the growth and impact of clean tech together.
This Cleantech Forward podcast is supported by Gowling WLG. A global leader in intellectual property law, Gowling WLG works alongside Canadian cleantech companies to develop IP strategies that maximize business opportunities and increase market share while protecting valuable innovation. From idea to investment to international expansion, Gowling WLG understands the potential of your intellectual property at every stage of growth. Visit gowlingwlg.com/cleantech to learn how they can support your business today. Welcome to Cleantech Forward. I'm Jeanette Jackson, CEO of Foresight Canada. Today, we're continuing our discussion around export opportunities for cleantech in Canada and around the world with some of our international partners and leaders of international cleantech clusters. We'll be discussing the crucial role played by cleantech ecosystem builders in supporting innovators as they navigate the international landscape and delve into how organizations like Foresight brings impact-ready solutions to organizations that are seeking to reduce emissions. The cleantech sector has been rapidly evolving, with groundbreaking innovations emerging every day. However, the journey from invention to successful market adoption can be a long and difficult process, even more so when exploring markets across the borders. Organizations like Foresight can act as catalysts, bridging the gap between innovative ideas and international market opportunities. We can provide a supportive environment for cleantech innovators, helping them grow and scale their businesses and connecting them with the resources they need to thrive on a global scale. On this episode, we'll be speaking with representatives from two amazing organizations at the forefront of the transition to a global green economy. Our first guest is Scott Allison, the Senior Project Manager with Denmark's Clean Cluster. Clean is a dynamic network of cleantech companies, research institutions, and public entities, and acts as a vibrant ecosystem builder, fostering collaboration and knowledge sharing amongst its members. They are harnessing the power of collective action, and through their efforts, they've been instrumental in boosting the cleantech sector's development in Denmark and around the world. Our second guest is Hein Molenkamp, the Managing Director of the Netherlands-based Water Alliance. The Water Alliance is a global network committed to accelerating the adoption of innovative water technologies. Water is a precious resource, and the Water Alliance understands the urgency of finding sustainable solutions to address the world's water-related challenges. Through their extensive network of companies, research institutions, and utilities, they provide invaluable support to cleantech innovators looking to tap into international markets. We'll be exploring the different ways in which these ecosystem builders contribute to the success of cleantech entrepreneurs as they bridge the gap between domestic and international markets, and what organizations like ours can do to help facilitate the relationships between customers and the cleantech exporters. We'll also discuss the strategies they employ to connect innovators with the right partners, investors, and markets, ultimately helping them overcome hurdles that come with international expansion. Here's some of my interview with Scott Allison about what Clean does to support the innovators they work with.
Clean is actually the environmental cluster of Denmark. So we're a national cluster, and we've been targeted as the stronghold within environmental technologies, which covers obviously a broad sense of clean tech. And as an organization itself, we are national. We have 5 offices across Denmark. We represent the water, climate adaptation, air, waste and resources, and nature-based solution, thematic, or let's say sectors, with a broad sense of members, majority of them being startups and SMEs. But also we have all the Danish universities that are part of our ecosystem, as well as the public authorities and regions and cities. So we're very much this triple helix, even quadruple helix organization that really wants to drive innovation within the environmental sector for Denmark, for Danish ecosystem, and also, which I guess is importantly with the discussion today, internationally.
And I mean, you've been with the organization, I believe, since 2016. What were you doing before Clean Cluster, and how did you get involved?
I'm not actually originally from Denmark, so I'm actually from Scotland. I actually came to Denmark to study, so I kind of broke away from working. I used to work a lot with urban planning, worked in Stockholm and Belgium, etc., in different kind of organizations. And I came to study in Denmark a master program in sustainable cities. So that was kind of my entry point into Denmark and to really take into the clean tech area. It was much more around urban environments and looking at sustainability as a cross-sectoral kind of thing and how these sectors work together. And then through, kind of studying in Denmark and getting into the ecosystem, I actually started at Clean as an intern, progressed my way through. So it kind of popped up this kind of interest. So I had no idea about clusters before and kind of fell into working on some projects with C40 network, so the big global network of cities where Clean was a partner to drive innovation, pre-commercial innovation, and mobilizing kind of companies and public kind of sector to work a bit closer together in terms of innovation. So that was kind of my entry point, and then I kind of scaled up in that kind of scene in Denmark and globally now, and how we work in Clean.
I'm definitely curious about some of the work that you're doing to help decarbonize communities or municipalities, cities. Can you share some examples of a few projects or the structure that you have under your platform that can help communities with those initiatives?
We drive a number of programs at the moment, specifically supporting Danish municipalities who have developed a climate action plan. How do you implement that action plan with the involvement of innovative technologies? So we're working with 6 Danish municipalities at the moment under a program called Circular Cities. One of the cases is actually a kind of industrial town in Denmark, which has a huge kind of industrial industry. There's organizations like Carlsberg is based there, and they have a lot of heat, but also water. And how can they build basically the foundation of the challenge is building a water symbiosis ecosystem in the city. So we're really at this early stage, bringing in all the stakeholders that could be potentially involved, what type of technology are out there, what kind of relations there are to similar initiatives elsewhere around the world. So this is where we use our kind of international Cleantech network. So we're really at this stage now, how can we build a consortia together to lift this up and actually get some cool initiatives around, as I said, this sharing of heat and water within an urban environment. That's kind of one case. Directly, we've been working a little bit with Copenhagen on City of Copenhagen on their nature-based solutions and using plants, etc., for stormwater management of stormwater and actually cleaning the water before it goes into the kind of water ecosystem in Copenhagen, which actually has some of the cleanest water. You can swim in the water in the city of Copenhagen, right in the city center. So they're really kind of protecting this, and how can we use this? So we've been driving a number of basically, challenge-based programs where we develop, it's almost like design programs where we get companies in to pitch a solution for the city of Copenhagen. So we work very much with the public sector, let's say.
Yeah, very familiar with the challenge frameworks. We're pretty bullish on that model as well. One of the first series of challenges we ran was for the resource sector, which started back in 2016, actually. So definitely bullish on that model where the buyer group, whether that's a municipality or industry partner or collective of industry partners, is consolidating some of their needs or gaps from an innovation perspective. And then you facilitate that matchmaking, and hopefully, by bringing in partners and resources, it actually gets deployed beyond pilot phase and at scale. So
yeah, exactly.
Wonderful.
And I think we've always taken this perspective. There needs to be some kind of discussion before buying something. So there is this gap between the buying phase and what is actually innovative and happening. So we see ourselves Clean playing that role as a cluster. How can we facilitate this kind of, we like to call it like brokering of innovation. That's kind of the field where you kind of sit in that area to really lift how public buyers and even like corporate buyers investing their money.
Kind of a great little segue here, like Canada, even though we're a big country, we're a relatively small market, and obviously Denmark has punched above its weight in its decarbonization efforts, but still a relatively small country. So how does the Clean Cluster assist Danish clean tech companies in identifying and accessing new export opportunities?
Clean as ourselves, we're kind of non-political, non-technologically neutral kind of organizations. We have a bit more kind of freedom, the way we kind of engage in, we like to call it is kind of internationalization of innovation. So we don't really do direct export, but obviously that comes with this kind of international collaboration. We start obviously with the political kind of landscape in Denmark. The Danish government has targeted certain markets with targets in the water area. So North America and India is the priority areas at the moment. So there's a lot of kind of national funding that goes that way. So that's kind of natural that we would start targeting those markets. But I think for us, we are very keen on collaborating with partners in markets. The market is separate. It's actually the partners that we know in that market. Do we trust them? Do we rely on them? Are they reliable? This is the whole foundation of the International Cleantech Network, so ICN, which I know, Foresight you're a part of. With building up that kind of relation, then that would then be a target market for us. Obviously, there needs to be this need for what technologies we have. And this is where these types of networks knowledge sharing around this kind of works. So we're kind of, market neutral as a sense. And we go where we see some real traction to actually do something. So we're quite strong at the moment targeting Latin America, specifically kind of Brazil and Colombia. We have a number of projects there. And this is all stemmed from projects a number of years ago together with C40 with the city of Rio, and we've kind of grown our kind of relationship connection there. And now actually other Danish organizations are kind of utilizing our relationships with their work in that region. The main thing for us is a trusted partner that can really drive what we would want to do in a specific market.
So while you're technology agnostic, are there still some themes that allow you to focus on identifying some of the right partners that you want to work with?
Yeah. So we're quite broad. Obviously, we have our thematics, as I said, in terms of kind of water, climate adaptation, air, nature-based solutions, and kind of waste and resources. But we have like a subset of priority areas that our members, we have innovation boards for each of those thematics made up of our members that kind of guide us. And then we kind of just engage with these kind of cluster partners or other ecosystem partners where there's maybe an interest. So we just actually took a Danish delegation to Canada around carbon capture and utilization, obviously to Vancouver and Edmonton. And that's kind of all been built upon the knowledge we have gained from organizations like yourself and some of the kind of Danish foreign ministry, that there is a real kind of strong development of carbon capture in Canada. And we would like to learn from that. So that was kind of the entry point we had for us. So that's something specific that's kind of grown from our innovation boards. And then we see which kind of markets have a strength in that we could maybe learn from, or is there a potential that we have from a Danish side have the expertise. So I think very much for going to Latin America is much more for the Danish kind of expertise being kind of exported to that region. And that's much more around the waste collection and waste sorting solutions. Denmark has been a reasonable kind of leader in terms of developing heat and power from waste and that kind of angle.
We have some similar challenges and opportunities here as well, right? So like you said, we believe on working with the best-in-class technology. We don't always need to start from ground zero. So if you can get a collective of innovators who are working across a value chain to understand how each of their pieces fit together, one technology might come from Denmark, one might come from Canada, one might come from somewhere else. But our vision is like, how do we just accelerate the decarbonization process instead of stalling what seems like year after year after year? So how do you build that momentum and help people understand that we're better together, stronger? There's tons of market opportunity. The problem is just so big and we need to collaborate, right?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, as you said, there's so many opportunities. The competition, it doesn't matter on that level. There is so many things, and especially from our side, from a Denmark's a very small country. All the companies that come out are very small, and they instantly are, when they're starting up, are already starting to think internationally. The market here is so small, and how can they really engage in developing a technology or a solution that fits multiple markets? That's from the ground zero when they start their business.
Another good segue, when you think about all the ventures that you support in their export journeys, what are some of the challenges that they often face when expanding into new markets?
The biggest one, I guess, is kind of depending on the market. So the European kind of market in terms of the European Union and how that's consolidated regulation and really kind of brought together how countries kind of work together and technologies and how this kind of all fits. It's a little simpler, but I've been working quite a lot towards North America, specifically the United States, which is such a complex kind of system for a company to try and establish itself in, with all the states, different regulations, different rules, different funding, different everything. So it's really kind of a complex thing, and we've really been trying to support our members to actually not target the United States, but target a specific state in the United States. And I guess it's maybe a little bit towards Canada, is maybe a bit more kind of simple from that side, but it's really that kind of understanding of the local regulation about how does your technology fit into that ecosystem? How does the funding work? How does piloting? The big issue for a lot of our members is how do they establish a pilot outside Denmark that then demonstrates their technology is feasible and it will be accepted by an international market. I think that's the huge gap we're seeing. We're trying to address that in some of our programs we develop in terms of funding pilots internationally, but it's kind of a huge barrier to any kind of end user, corporate buyer, utility that's looking at something. This is great. Have you ever done it in Canada, let's say? And if the answer is no, it's almost like a barrier straight away.
We see that all the time with Canadian companies as well. When you are building relationships with international partnerships, what are some of the characteristics you're looking for with those partners? Is it culture fit? Is it just pure opportunity? I mean, I want to make assumptions, but I don't want to assume anything. So if you have like a top 3 ideal partner on your international scouting efforts, what would those be?
The most important thing is this kind of trust kind of angle. This is a big thing in Denmark. Denmark is founded on trust as a society. It's a very trusting society. So actually having someone that's that kind of reliable trust partner and has an actually understanding of how clusters work and a cluster-like organization. So we are quite dynamic in the way we work. It almost feels like a startup. We're not kind of bureaucratic. We're kind of real kind of whatever drivers. So having that match of, I was going to say like fast pace is maybe not the right word, but that kind of that dynamic, that it's not too bureaucratic as a process. This is where we've had difficulties with utilizing more of the formal country systems in terms of the foreign ministries. Obviously, they're very helpful for certain things, but maybe not on this kind of innovation, really kind of quick kind of fixes to things. So I think that's quite key as well. And then for us, it's finding where the win-win is. So if it's a partner that can benefit from utilizing clean, so it's not just one way. I think that's the foundation of all the international partnerships we build, is that there is a mutual benefit into what we're doing. We're not one-way selling. It's a two-way thing. I think it's core to everything we do.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. When you think about sort of the markets and the biggest challenges in Canada and what Denmark has already tackled, or vice versa, some of their challenges where Canada might be leaning in a little bit more, do you see particular opportunities for collaboration between Canada and Denmark?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's plenty of kind of potential there. Obviously, I mentioned this carbon capture and storage and utilization delegation we did. We specifically targeted Canada to gain knowledge from the Canadian kind of industry built around this, and we can see a huge potential there in terms of some R&D type innovation projects coming forward. There's a lot of funding coming into Denmark, how to address this. This is some area that's it's not been a prioritized area in Denmark. So we're very much exploring that at the moment. And then kind of going the other way, obviously, when you're looking at kind of how Denmark is being trying to address climate adaptation as a low-lying country and utilizing their kind of cloudburst strategies and flood management and storm management. There's a lot of innovation when you're talking around the Danish cities here that I think can be applied to many similar kind of cities in terms of their kind of infrastructure that they can really kind of learn from. So these kind of cloudburst streets, how storage of water can be done in multiple kind of technical ways, and also using nature-based kind of solutions and building these green boulevards, and how we actually monitor and collect data on this and clean the water at the same time so that we can still have a harbor we can still swim in. I think there's huge kind of potential from that side. Danish kind of innovation.
Yeah, I have a massive appreciation for the approach in terms of how everything's integrated as a system. So the closed loop system, circular. Sometimes I do find in certain areas or certain problem sets, they just pick one part of the problem when there's a real opportunity to take a step back, look at the problem holistically, and perhaps, like you said, really make sure we're effectively forcing nature-based solutions. It doesn't always have to be deep tech, hard tech. There's some little things that you can really do to change, that impact.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I actually think this kind of actual non-intrusive infrastructure kind of solutions is actually what a lot of urban environments are looking for, because it's expensive and time consuming to rip up streets on a practical level. Like, how can you really address this? I know this has been a big issue in some of the work we've done in North America and specifically US, where actually who owns the land becomes a big issue. Obviously in Europe and kind of Denmark, there's a lot of public ownership. It's a little bit easier to kind of take initiative around some of these things. So I know doing some work in New York, it's almost impossible to get things off the ground in terms of who owns the land to be able to actually do some of these big infrastructure projects.
Looking ahead, what are the goals of the Clean Cluster with regards to further increasing opportunities for Danish clean tech exporters to global markets?
I think our goal as the environmental cluster for Denmark is that we support our members, so mostly startup and SMEs, to grow in terms of the innovation they bring, and also as a commercial kind of side and go international. So that's our kind of main goal. And for us, it's by doing this, we build up our global kind of partnerships and kind of ecosystem. And we're very proud that we host the Secretariat of the International Cleantech Network, and we have been supporting this to grow as well, and really kind of bring kind of a global perspective in terms of when you're looking at this kind of partnership kind of model. But I think, we are really representing these kind of small companies that we have, and we see the potential of them to really kind of help and solve critical issues abroad, and how can we connect them with the right partners and help them grow as they grow their business.
What advice would you give any clean tech venture who is looking to break into a new market?
I would suggest main piece of advice is to understand that market you go to, ensure that you've done the prep work, make sure there is a need for what you want there, and tailor. And you have to be able to tailor whatever solution you have, technology, etc., to fit that market, and be prepared to scale down how good you think you are and actually match the counterpart in that market, and actually really show how we work together to solve the issue that they would like to potentially purchase.
If you're a repeat listener on the show, you've probably heard me say it before, but it bears repeating. Climate change is a problem without borders. At Foresight, we believe that collaboration is absolutely instrumental if we're going to successfully transition to a net zero economy. It's so important that we get everyone moving in the same direction. Collaborating with ecosystem builders to develop economic clusters that are globe-spanning streamlines the process of aligning the various agendas of stakeholder groups. Together, we can achieve so much more than we can on our own. Through collaboration with international partners like Clean, we can tap into the expertise and knowledge of various foreign organizations, including industry leaders, researchers, government agencies, and more. By tapping into these crucial resources, we can share information with each other, discover best practices, gain insights into local markets, and help clean tech developers tailor their technologies to the needs of local industries and communities. Through collaboration, we can provide clean tech companies with a pathway to overcome barriers and leverage opportunities in international markets. By forming strategic partnerships and sharing knowledge and resources, we can accelerate the global growth of clean tech adoption and contribute to the sustainable development goals of different countries around the world. Which brings us to our next guest, Hein Molenkamp, Managing Director of the Netherlands-based Water Alliance. The Water Alliance is a cluster of public and private companies, government agencies, and knowledge institutes involved in water technology in the Netherlands. The Water Alliance promotes Dutch water expertise and technology on an international scale and fosters partnerships with organizations worldwide. In 2021, the Water Alliance joined in an official partnership with Foresight's WaterNext cluster initiative. WaterNext is a pan-Canadian water tech cluster of more than 750 companies that spans multiple sectors, including utilities, energy, mining, agriculture, and manufacturing, and works to accelerate the commercialization and adoption of innovative water technologies. Together, our partnership has accelerated the growth of both the Canadian and Dutch water innovation ecosystems and has led to the discovery of opportunities for both countries, knowledge sharing, and collaboration between Dutch and Canadian SMEs. Here's more from my interview with Hein about the Water Alliance, our partnership together, and how it has benefited Canadian and Dutch clean tech exporters.
Water Alliance is founded some 14 years ago, and we are part of a larger ecosystem, in fact. And Water Alliance acts as a network or cluster organization in that ecosystem. So Water Alliance itself is a network of approximately 200 members, mainly being SMEs. So in the water tech space, so not specifically clean tech, but of course many water tech companies are in clean tech, if you want to call it so. So as we are more on the market side, so if companies want to sell their innovations to the market, we are active with those members. But at the ecosystem itself, it's a complete ecosystem, in fact, from first idea to how to scale up your innovations, and then if the innovations have to be brought to the market, there Water Alliance is more active. But we are in close relationship with several other organizations at our ecosystem to accelerate new innovations and bring them faster to the market, as they have to do it all alone for them.
And you yourself, you have quite an interesting background. You have been an experienced professional in the field of water technology from an engineering and business perspective, and of course have achieved lots of really interesting milestones, both through the Alliance and separately. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came about being part of the Water Alliance and some of your experience that led you to this?
Yeah, well, my experience is indeed for many years in the water tech since the last 25 years. And well, as I'm already working a bit longer, I actually started more in the agri-tech surrounding. So, but all through my career, I had to do with innovations, in fact. So there's a tremendous number of companies and doing all kinds of innovations, and it's a tough road to get those innovations really to successful products, and that's what I like, to support our members in that, and we've built up our team around that we can efficiently help them in several fields. And it's not only about technology; it is also about hard sales and how to put out your strategy, or how to get finance to the table, which can be, of course, very helpful for those young companies who want to become a big company, but it takes them always many more years than they expected. So there's a lot about financing on the way as well.
Something that I've always believed is at the start of a venture, it's a lot of technology and engineering and a little bit of business, but very quickly the venture needs to figure out exactly. It becomes maybe 20% technology and it's all about the business. And of course, technology only succeeds when you have the right people around it, selling and raising capital and building those relationships with customers.
And building the right team is maybe most difficult especially for those startups who started alone and they think they know it all. But and as you say, it's a lot about technology, and especially in the start, and the technology has to function. And of course, you keep on making it better down the road, but there is much more which becomes much more important than technology alone, and that's the whole difficulty, I think, for a lot of startups especially when they come straight from the technology side or as a researcher. And I can imagine that you're having a dream that everybody is waiting for my solution, and of course, but there's much more to say than only the technology itself.
Foresight Canada and the Water Alliance recently joined a formal partnership, September 2021. Can you tell us a little bit about how that partnership came to be?
Yeah, well, that also has a history. Probably it goes further back than maybe when Water Next or Foresight were already there. Eh? So when we started from the day one, I had a lot of contacts with Canada and the water tech sector, and then I talk about 10 years ago or so. Canada and the Netherlands have a good relation, and I've been a lot on all kinds of events like Water Canada and all kinds of congresses. And through the years, then, somehow we got contact through Alan, who is with Foresight in this Water Next cluster. And still, there is a lot of things going on the water tech. And let's be honest, companies, they keep on looking for right partnerships if they want to bring innovations to the market. So therefore, at the end of the day, new partnerships are important. And our way forward as a cluster has always been and probably will always be that we try to find good relations with clusters and countries like Canada, like with Foresight, who also have many members. And that's an interesting way of getting companies matched to other companies. And I think that's the way forward.
If we dig into partnerships like this, what are some tangible ways that you think this will be able to benefit the innovation community, these types of relationships?
I think there is so many challenges in the world, and they are only increasing around climate change and water shortages, etc. So water and water tech, and that especially plays a very important role, in my opinion, to tackle many of those challenges. And in my opinion, that can only be done by working together. And it starts, of course, with bringing technology from both ends to each other, and see where companies from both our organizations could probably work together. But the next step is, of course, if new innovations probably will come out of new combinations of companies as well, who see that they can benefit from each other as well. And innovation is really something which is very much necessary to tackle all those challenges we have, and with climate change and whatever is going on. And the last couple of years, it's really increasing. I don't know exactly every news in Canada, but if I look to Europe, then it's really that's going fast. If you look to France and northern Italy at the moment, having a lot of problems with drought, and we have to take more care about our water use, and that the fresh water availability is quite small, and so we have to take care that we can handle that and find new solutions to even do more on that field.
One of the things that we recognize, especially for Canadian companies, and I think as amazing as the Netherlands is, it's a small country, and Canada has actually, from an economic perspective, it's pretty small. So most of our ventures export. And so to collaborate across borders and understand better the problems that different regions are facing, understand what competencies each region have, so that we're building and collaborating on solutions that can be more quickly adopted is what I see as some great opportunities as well through partnership. There's no sense in mapping out gaps in our innovation ecosystem so that we can create a whole bunch of new ventures when those ventures already exist in other ecosystems.
Exactly.
Because as we know, innovation takes a while, right?
It takes always longer than everybody expects. So a lot of new technologies, they take more than 10 years before they really become commercially interesting, and that is much more than everybody expects when they start with it. So, and therefore it's good that our sort of relations cluster to cluster help in this acceleration. So what you say is true. Don't invent the wheel for the fifth or second time, so to say, but see what's out there, and then probably work together and that space. So there's still a lot to do, and also for Canadian companies going to Europe. So that's how we also work. We'd like to, of course, to show innovations which are there in the Netherlands and which might be interesting for the Canadian market, but it's also the other way around. And that's why it's so important that we meet like we did in our meeting at Vancouver a couple of weeks ago, but also at trade fairs, and I think it's all about meeting each other a lot, and members, bringing those members together, and that helps accelerate those innovations.
Do you think there are, within the water space, some themes that are common or different between Canada and the Netherlands?
Maybe adoption of innovation is a little bit more advanced in Europe at utilities, but there are so many different markets, so it's hard to say. So for us, our members, let's say we have some 200, but maybe a third to a half of those members, they have technology which may be used in utilities. So let's say for drinking water applications or wastewater treatment, but there's so many other technologies which are in a totally different market, like in food industries or chemical industries or in and around houses. So it's hard to say. There are so many different approaches altogether. I think looking to circular economy type of ideas, I think they're quite common also in Canada and the Netherlands, and I think that's promising, because we need a mutual vision there that those type of solutions will help us.
When you talk about some of the competencies around utilities, what other global markets are of interest to you in the Water Alliance?
If we look to where our members are active, so we talk a lot with our members, and of course we'll find technologies all over the globe, but in general, most of the Dutch companies tend to have their business in Europe or around it. So let's say most countries in Europe are interesting for us. Northern America in general, so USA, Canada is interesting, and a lot of our members are active there or want to become active there. Middle East is of course of interest, and some countries in Asia are interesting as well. And of course, but there are so many more markets, but let's be honest, that's also very difficult to cover for an organization like Water Alliance with we have 15, 16 colleagues, but not everybody is internationally. That is one of the things you have to focus, and that's what we try to do at our organization as well. Because in each country where you or I should go, there is something to do with water quality, I'm sure. And so if you give attention to a country like that, you will definitely find potential business. But you cannot handle that. So that therefore, the type of relations we are building up with you guys and with embassies are important. That is also the antennas in the market. So, but we tend to focus on, let's say, economical, viable countries, most of it. So less on the development market, which will not say that there is no challenges there, but that's most of the time harder for the typical Dutch companies, being mainly small SMEs. Let's be honest. So they have also to bring their focus where they want to go and where they can go.
Canadian ventures, have different challenges when they, look at international markets. Sometimes it can be culture fit, sometimes it can be different regulations and permitting requirements. What type of challenges do you see on your side with ventures that are looking to enter new markets?
It's mostly about being able to see how your scale up should be done and can be done. So first, your technology must fit in the market. And let's say it fits in the Netherlands, then it might probably fit in Canada, but you have to find out. So it takes time. And most of the thing, when you are a small company, let's say in the startup or scale-up phase, then you have to do everything at the same time. You have to scale up your market, you have to find partners, you have to also scale up your production. And most of the time that it has the attention of the management, who is also going out there to find new markets. So, and of course, if you are becoming in a position that your company grows, then you can make departments, and you can say, I want to have an export department who does the markets. But in the early start, then that's all done by the same small number of people in a company. So financing is one, focusing is one, and if you have to find out, you think let's take everything what comes along, but at the end of the day, you cannot be everywhere. And if you are starting in a certain market, you have to, and you have teamed up, for instance, with a local business partner, you have to also take care for training and servicing, and you have to be able to make time to build out your relation and that certain market. So better pick 1 or 2 or 3 markets than 15. Right?
What role does collaboration with international partners play in the Water Alliance's approach to expanding into new markets?
It can start from an embassy, of course, or a consulate. There is in many countries we have embassies and consulates as well. So that relation is very important. But once the eye is falling on certain market, I think it's very fruitful to set up relations with clusters like what we do with Foresight and Water Alliance. That builds up a little bit trust, and it helps also. Some companies might be interested, for instance, to talk with you to settle down in the region. Well, then we can never do that from our side. There you need also local contacts, and in my opinion, having this type of contacts with clusters is crucial to make your network larger, and also being able to have these matchmaking opportunities and the local. So we have examples also in the US where we connected a few companies, and there the clusters were crucial in not only to supply, for instance, an office that they have a foothold there, but maybe more to get them known to all the typical regulations, which of course are totally different from at home. And there a partnership is very important.
Many folks in the climate conversation really focus on GHG emissions, which of course is critical, but a lot of folks sort of misinterpret the opportunity to reduce energy consumption when cleaning and moving water, as well as the role that water plays in a lot of the solutions that are going to help decarbonize many sectors. How does the Water Alliance promote sustainable and environmentally friendly water solutions, both domestically as the cluster in the country, as well as internationally, through partnerships or directly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I personally have sometimes I'm a little bit in doubt how to do that. So as a cluster, most of our members are SMEs and maybe even smaller SMEs, and there's a few bigger ones, of course, but they in their daily business, they don't talk day to day about SDG 6 or whatever carbon reduction. But at the end of the day, what they bring as an innovation, of course, affects that. So it's difficult. As water tech is often, if you only look to the water itself, then what I say, it is quite cheap water, isn't it? That doesn't help bringing the business case over. But as soon as it is about saving energy, for instance, and there it helps in the business case. But at the end of the day, water will become more and more scarce. So I think the value of water is much higher than the price, but it's not seen every day. So, but of course, when the papers announce again there is drought here and there's drought there, and then the topic becomes more on top of the mind. So this is quite difficult in water tech, I think. It's sometimes hard to explain what it brings, but until there is no water, or there's less water, of course, and I think, and also in countries like Canada and the Netherlands, where cities are growing fast, and there is really tremendous challenges coming up, how to get enough fresh water available. And maybe we are also a little bit spoiled as consumers, and it's not maybe, I'm sure that we are spoiled. We use drinking water for many applications where we could also use other qualities of water for, but it is through the years we became used to the fact that we flush toilets with drinking water, but it's a strange idea today to develop something where you flush toilets with drinking water, isn't it? But yeah, we are so used to that, and as an average consumer doesn't know the problem, because the water is there every day, 24 hours a day, and the price is not so high that you say, wow, we have to save it. But it changes, and I think that's going quick.
I think people are going to be shocked when limitations on freshwater usage start to come into play. It's because people have certainly taken liberties and become a little too comfy.
Yeah, but that is also has also to do with our economy, of course. We want to have cheap energy and cheap water, but we still want to use more and more. So it's hard to get the message, of course, that it might also be a good thing to use a little bit less. But and I think that will come. So it will not be the same as the last 25 years.
What advice would you give to entrepreneurs in Canada, the Netherlands, anywhere really, when they are trying to look at new markets outside of their domestic landscape?
Go there. That's one, and not do it from distance. So travel around and talk with people. And it sounds simple, but with COVID times, since COVID, we are more and more behind the laptop screen. But I'm sure you have to go out there. And also, if you want have a technology that it is not going from the leaflet, so you have to go to those markets, be there and travel, and that takes a lot of time. You have to build trust and you have to build relations, and that often doesn't have anything to do with technology as well. And then I'm sure there is many innovations out there which have much more potential than only your own market, and that counts for Canada and for the Netherlands and for many other countries. So I think that's an important one, and that is, well, it's interesting. We started the discussion also, but that is not only about technology, but this is definitely not only a technology. This is totally nothing, and this is more cross-cultural knowledge, and that is often very important to be able to enter a market before your technology is there.
The Dutch Water Alliance is doing incredible work. You must have a bit of a forward-looking plan. What are some of your goals for the next 3 to 5 years for the members and ventures and partners that you support?
Yeah, that has to do with scaling up the attention to help them as well. And so on one side is so there has to we have to bring more attention to those members to help them and really listen to them what they need. And that's a large variety, of course, what they need. And on the other hand, we also have to put more effort and on the front end together with our ecosystem to bring more new innovations. Because, well, we already discussed it, and it takes a long time before the innovation is going to the market. So we need much more innovations to be able to have new solutions in 10 years as well. So the solutions we have today will definitely not be the solutions of 10 years. And the markets are changing. So we have to take care, and not only us as Waterlife, but in our cooperation and with many countries, that we keep up the work of paying attention that new innovations need time to be developed. You cannot let the grass grow faster by pulling to it. So you can help it a little bit with fertilizer or whatever, but if you pull it and you think you can go faster, that doesn't help too much. So we need the time, and therefore we have to take care that new innovations are developed as well.
Partnerships like the one between WaterNext and the Water Alliance are going to be absolutely critical as we transition to a global net zero economy. As these ecosystems we are building together grow, we increase the awareness of clean tech as an option for organizations looking to reduce emissions, save fresh water, and thus providing more opportunities to clean tech innovators everywhere. In Canada, the domestic market for clean tech is relatively small compared to other countries. Finding international opportunities is not only a good option for many of our domestic innovators, but a necessary one. Navigating those markets can be challenging, but organizations like Foresight, the Water Alliance, and Clean are here to help you find and secure those opportunities. Foresight is developing sector-specific clusters through our various Next initiatives: Carbon Next, Build Next, Bio Next, Energy Next, Water Next, and Agri Next. And there are more on the way. If you're an innovator working on solutions in these areas, you can learn more about these projects on our website, foresightcac.com, and reach out to us direct. We would love to hear from you and support you any way we can as you expand into the global marketplace. And of course, we are always looking for opportunities to collaborate with industry and partners like our guests on the show today, so don't hesitate to reach out. I think we've covered how ecosystem builders can help clean tech innovators find and secure international opportunities. But before we go, I'd like to chat about how you can protect your technology as you establish yourself in foreign markets. The best way to do that is by developing a robust IP strategy with the help of an experienced professional. Joining us from Gowling is Tim Bailey, a partner at Gowling WLG's Calgary office and the leader of the firm's intellectual property practice. Tim is joining us to discuss how IP protection can enable Canadian clean tech innovators to export their solutions, how they can support clean tech ventures operating in international markets, and how they can help you navigate foreign regulations. Tim, welcome to Cleantech Forward.
Thanks very much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to the audience.
Tim, you are a partner at Gowling WLG's Calgary office and leader of the firm's Calgary Intellectual Property Group. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your passion for intellectual property for clean tech companies?
So I am a lawyer, patent agent, and trademark agent. What that means is I spend a lot of my working time helping clients either with my lawyer hat on, which means helping them work through oftentimes commercial agreements or corporate organization. And that often overlies with the technology aspect of my practice, meaning that if a client is looking to commercialize technology with another party through some sort of licensing or joint venture, I'll help them, both parties try and understand the best way forward to do that, to find synergies and to get that technology to market as quickly as possible. Wearing my patent agent hat, I work with a variety of different companies. And what that means is I basically have the coolest job in the world, where I get to work with people who are very excited about the technology and the innovation that they're working on, oftentimes at the leading edge of their respective industries or fields, and try to find ways to get protection for that intellectual property, whether that be through developing an IP strategy for protecting trade secrets, or what we'll talk about later, I think a little bit, is a global or more nationalized patent protection strategy. So I get to draft patent applications and work with the clients as they file and prosecute those patent applications around the world. wearing my trademark hat, I help clients protect the brand that they use to present their company or their services and other commercial offerings, products to the world at large, so that people will align their brand with their offerings and hopefully enhance their market share.
So in the intro, we talked a little bit about how we're focusing on international markets. What is the role of an IP protection strategy in terms of going after new markets outside of your domestic landscape?
I think the first thing is that whenever I have these types of discussions with clients, the first thing I like to do is sort of pull back on the stick, gain a little bit of altitude, and look at the broader question of what is it that the client is looking to get help with. And so one thing that I find that's very helpful to reinforce with clients is, I think, and as do my colleagues here in the Calgary office and in our offices across the country, we think it's critical for companies to ensure that they align their IP strategy with a commercial strategy. So when you put that in the context of international markets, I think it's important for people to realize that if, for example, there's a particular country where they have no reason to expect there to be a market developed there. For example, there may be regulatory barriers, or there may simply not be a desire in that particular country for the services or commercial offerings you have, then that's the easy part to carve off, and if there's no commercial market, then there's no reason to expand the IP strategy into that given jurisdiction. The other part of aligning a business strategy with an IP strategy also has to do with what I alluded to earlier, is ensuring that if your particular services or commercial offering products have regulatory impacts, then it's really important that you can align the regulatory impact with a regulatory landscape within a given jurisdiction with your business strategy, your corporate strategy, your commercial strategy. And then it becomes easy to start identifying the places where there's the best chance to market your given offerings, again, services or products, with the IP strategy. From there, the question becomes, is a given jurisdiction a place that we're putting ourselves in the shoes of a client, where we're likely to, for example, manufacture a particular good? If that's the case, then that's a key place to focus your strategy for seeking patent protection. But then the other aspect of that is, even if you're not likely to manufacture in a given jurisdiction, is there a chance that a competitor who may be interested in competing with you directly by making a similar product to yours, is there a reason or rationale why they may, in a given jurisdiction, look to compete with you by manufacturing there and then exporting elsewhere? So those are other aspects of an IP strategy that are important to consider. What competitor activity might be in a given market, independent of whether or not you've identified through your analysis of your commercial strategy and your regulatory strategy, whether or not a given jurisdiction is actually of interest for you to operate there. And then the last thing I think that's important to keep in mind is that each jurisdiction has its own set of rules for enforcing IP. And so it's really good at the outset to have a bit of an understanding as to what enforcement might look like in a given jurisdiction. So an example would be if a business strategy and a regulatory strategy identifies a jurisdiction where you should file, for example, patent protection in that jurisdiction, either because it's a primary market where you'll be operating, or it's a market where you won't be operating, but you expect a competitor could be, then the question becomes, is it worthwhile? What does the enforcement look like through the courts or other potential administrative tribunals within that jurisdiction? And how can you make a decision on how to best direct your limited resources, time, money, and effort? And does it make sense, based on an understanding of that enforcement there in that country, to actually invest in trying to secure patent protection, as an example? And I think the last point I'll raise is there's also a number of ways that you can look at how goods are moved through the world. For example, there are some really massive ports in this on the planet where a lot of shipping lanes end up, and that allows for the flow of goods between different jurisdictions. So it may be useful to look at if your particular commercial offering relates to products that may be manufactured elsewhere. You don't necessarily have to seek patent protection in a jurisdiction where the product may ultimately end up, but just the shores where those products may end up if they've been manufactured elsewhere. And if you've decided not to seek patent protection in a jurisdiction where a competitor may be manufacturing infringing goods.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. As a startup, you have so many resources. And so working with someone like yourself can really help, go through a process of making sure you're investing those dollars where they're best suited. Which leads me to my next question. How does Gowling support a Canadian exporter looking to enter international markets? And what steps do you take in engaging a tech company from Canada?
So I have the benefit of working at a firm that truly has a global presence. We have offices in a large majority of international cities through continental Europe, in China, in the Middle East. And so what that does is that allows us to get client advice on some of the things I alluded to or spoke to earlier with respect to regulatory issues that may arise, for example, in France or in Emirates or in China. So I'm regularly in contact with colleagues in other offices of the firm and helping clients understand what the landscape could be within a given jurisdiction. And if we don't have an office in a given jurisdiction, then we are able to leverage our firm's longstanding reputation and nearby offices that we may have to get more specific answers that questions that clients may have. So what it really looks like is having the help of a firm with a global platform. We're able to access information much more readily than perhaps other local firms are going to find that more challenging. So access to information, I think, is the one key way that we can help exporter Canadian companies export their commercial offerings to places that they've again done the assessment to understand how they can align their commercial opportunities with their IP strategy.
Is Gowling able to help Canadian innovators communicate with organizations like the Trade Commissioner Service or Export Development Canada or other supports that are out there that you're aware of?
Yeah, I think there definitely is an opportunity for that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think having dealt with a number of trade commissioners and in other jurisdictions, so for example, Canadian offices that are in Asia, having the ability to reach out on the letterhead of a respected firm can open doors easily, more easily perhaps than, for example, an email from a company that is still using a Gmail account as an example. There's a level of sophistication that comes with, or an anticipated level of sophistication that comes when these government entities or sort of arm's length government entities are contacted by firms of the best reputation. In addition to that, depending on which particular jurisdiction it is that the client's interested in, we have a couple of different angles of attack that we can likely provide help. So for example, within our firm, going back to the global platform, we do have a country desk for effectively every country on the planet, which means that there is an expert within our firm that has some form of connection or experience in dealing within that jurisdiction. So whether that means it's dealing with a Canadian office in a foreign jurisdiction, or perhaps even connecting directly with the foreign government or regulator in a particular jurisdiction, chances are we have someone that's done that already and can help facilitate introductions or even directly corresponding with that authority on behalf of the client. And the last part is that we do have some partners that focus specifically on issues like cross-border transactions, which have not only a regulatory aspect in terms of having approvals required by particular anti-competition bureaus or what have you, but also with respect to how local tax authorities could be assessing the value of these transactions and the particular tax burden. That's a very specific niche area with respect to transfer pricing that, again, our firm has quite a bit of expertise in. And it helps at the end of the day, it helps the client get some more certainty that when they're proceeding with potentially a joint venture across borders, our firm is well suited to provide not only access and information to the other jurisdiction and the rules and requirements there, but also how to deal with the repercussions of the success of that joint venture and how the CRA may be looking at the revenue flowing from that success.
When should a startup engage you in their IP strategy process?
My advice would always be as soon as possible. And that's not because I'm looking to soak up the limited resources and time of a really busy startup entrepreneur, but it's because I'd like to start giving them access to information, to resources that we provide, free of charge, that helps them establish their strategies. It makes a lot of the questions that may be burning in the back of an entrepreneur's mind a little bit clearer, so that they do know when the critical moments are to engage a law firm so they can help them. I mean, ideally, as I say, the best time is as soon as possible. The reason I say that is because of what I just mentioned, but also because there's been a number of times where I've been helping clients after they've escalated from being a startup to successfully seeking fundraising or capitalization from third parties. And at that point, going through the due diligence process is when the skeleton's in the closet, in terms of during the startup days when maybe there weren't the resources or the time and effort and thought put into how employment agreements should look. That's the point in time when the third party financier is approaching, is considering to give you the funding you need to capitalize and move forward, that the employment issues may come up. So how have you been able to, years ago, button down the inventorship rights from all employees and contractors? Or has the company secured the requirements for assignment of copyright if there has been code written? So there's a number of things that during the foundational stages of the company, if they aren't buttoned down at those stages, then it becomes a little bit trickier and certainly more involved to try and resolve them years later, when someone who's looking to provide you capital is asking those questions that are entirely reasonable on a due diligence exercise.
I'm curious, if you were to give one critical piece of advice to any venture, any sector looking to scale globally when it comes to IP, what would it be?
That is a tricky question. In as much as this might be trite, there is not one particular piece of advice I'd give other than trying to understand what it is that you're offering. So for example, is it a chemical process that your company has figured out that helps clean up the environment? If so, patents may be a particularly useful way to try and seek that protection. However, if you've come up with, for example, a machine learning or AI type of application or platform that helps address, for example, potentially climate modeling, then patents may be useful, but not necessarily as useful as ensuring that copyright protection is secured in your local jurisdiction, and then having an understanding of how that could apply in other jurisdictions where you think that your AI platform may have a market, or you may have a market for your AI platform. So I think the single most important piece of advice is to try and look at the forest for the trees and understand what it is that your company can offer as a commercial offering within a given market, and then what are the best ways to protect that. And that's going to come down to the nuts and bolts or bits and bytes of your particular offering, and understanding how can it be protected in different jurisdictions. How can I best leverage my domestic protection to help me in other jurisdictions? And then from there, are there people that can help me understand what it looks like in that other jurisdiction, that can give me information and potentially access to partners in other jurisdictions? And I think once you've got those sort of high level issues addressed, then it becomes much more easy to use that as a framework to then proceed and approach each potential market in a different jurisdiction on a sort of ad hoc or case-by-case basis.
A robust IP protection strategy can enable clean tech companies to protect their innovations, maintain market exclusivity, navigate complicated foreign legal systems, and confidently expand into international markets. It plays a vital role in safeguarding investments and supporting long-term growth and success, which is why it is so important to secure the help of experts like the Gowling team before you run into issues. Thanks so much for listening today. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Cleantech Forward. And if you are enjoying the show, make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share the show with your friends and colleagues. We'll be back next month with another episode on the opportunities around Canadian cleantech exports. I'll see you there.
To learn more about Foresight's programs, events, and more, visit us at foresightcac.com or follow us on social at Foresight CAC.